Her bracelets were too big to be of gold. She wore earrings with large white stones that were certainly not diamonds, and she belonged unmistakably to the people. One surmised she would talk too loud, and shout on every occasion with exaggerated gestures. When the train started, she remained motionless in her place, in the attitude of a woman who was indignant, without even looking at us. Paul began to talk to me, evidently with an eye to effect, trying to attract her attention. Shopkeepers expose their wares to catch the notice of passers-by. She, however, did not appear to be paying the least attention. "Toulon, 10 minutes to wait, refreshment room," the porters shouted. Paul motioned to me to get out, and as soon as we had done so, he said, "I wonder who on earth she could be." I began to laugh. "I'm sure I don't know, and I don't in the least care." He was quite excited. "She is uncommonly fresh and a pretty girl. What eyes she has, and how cross she looks! She must have been dreadfully worried, for she takes no notice of anything." "You will have all your troubles for nothing," I growled. He began to lose his temper. "I am not taking any trouble, my dear fellow. I think her an extremely pretty woman, that is all. If one could only speak to her, but I don't know how to begin. Cannot you give me an idea? Can't you guess who she is?" "Upon my word, I cannot. However, I should rather think she is some strolling actress who is going to rejoin her company after a love adventure." He seemed quite upset, as if I had said something insulting. "What makes you think that? On the contrary, I think she looks most respectable." "Just look at her bracelets," I said, "her earrings, and her whole dress. I should not be the least surprised if she were a dancer or a circus rider, but most likely a dancer. Her whole style smacks very much of the theater." He evidently did not like the idea. "She is much too young, I am sure. She is hardly 20. "Well," I replied, "there are many things that one can do before one is 20. Dancing and elocution are among them." "Take your seats for Nice, Ventimiglia," the guards and porters called. We got in. Our fellow passenger was eating an orange, and certainly she did not do it elegantly. She had spread her pocket handkerchief on her knees, and the way in which she tore off the peel, opened her mouth to put in the pieces, and then spat the pips out the window, showed her training had been decidedly vulgar. She also seemed more put out than ever, and swallowed the fruit with an exceeding comic air of rage. Paul devoured her with his eyes, and tried to attract her attention and excite her curiosity, but in spite of his talk, and of the manner in which he brought in well-known names, she did not pay the least attention to him. After passing Fréjus and Saint Raphael, the train passed through a veritable garden, a paradise of roses and groves of oranges and lemons, covered with fruits and flowers at the same time. That delightful coast from Marseille to Genoa is a kingdom of perfumes in the home of flowers. June is the time to see it in all its beauty, when every narrow valley, on every slope, the exquisite flowers are growing luxuriantly. And roses, fields, hedges, groves of roses. They climb the walls, blossom on the roofs, hang from the trees, peep out from among the bushes. They are white, red, yellow, large and small, single, simple, self-colored dress, or full of heavy, brilliant toilettes. Their breath makes the air heavy and relaxing, and the still more penetrating odor of the orange blossoms sweetens the atmosphere till it might almost be called the refinement of odor. The shore, with its brown rocks, was bathed by the motionless Mediterranean. The hot summer sun stretched like a fiery cloud over the mountains, over the long expanses of sand, and over the motionless, apparently solid blue sea. The train went on through the tunnels, along the slopes, above the water, on straight wall-like viaducts, and on a soft, vague, saltish smell, a smell of drying seaweed, mingled at times with the strong, heavy perfume of the flowers. But Paul neither saw, looked at, nor smelled anything, for our fellow traveler engrossed all his attention. When we reached Caen, as he wished to speak to me, he signed me to get out, and as soon as I did so, he took me by the arm. "Do you know, she is really charming. Just look at her eyes, and I never saw anything like her hair." "Don't excite yourself," I replied, "or else address her, if you have any intentions that way. She does not look unapproachable, I fancy, although she appears to be a little bit grumpy." "Why don't you speak to her?" he said. "I don't know what to say. for I am always terribly stupid at first. I can never make advances to a woman in the street. I follow them, go round and round them, and quite close to them, but never know what to say at first. I only tried to enter into conversation with a woman in that way. I promised Paul to do all I could to bring about a conversation, and when we had taken our place again, I politely asked our neighbor, "Have you any objection to the smell of tobacco, madam?" She merely replied, "Non capisco." So she's an Italian. I felt an absurd inclination to laugh, as Paul did not understand a word of that language. I was obliged to act as his interpreter. So I said in Italian, "I asked you, madam, whether you had any objection to tobacco smoke." With an angry look, she replied, "Che me fa." She had neither turned her head nor looked at me, and I really did not know whether to take this "What do I care?" for an authorization, a refusal, a sign of indifference, or for a mere "Let me alone." "Madam," I replied, "if you mind the smell of tobacco in the least," she again said, "Mica," in a tone which seemed to mean, "I wish to goodness you would leave me alone." It was, however, a kind of permission, so I said to Paul, "You may smoke." He looked at me in that curious sort of way that people have when they try to understand others who are talking in a strange language before them, and asked me, "What did you say to her?" I asked whether we might smoke, and she said we might do whatever we liked. Whereupon I lit my cigar. Did she say anything more? If you had counted her words, you would have noticed that she used exactly 6, 2 of which gave me to understand that she knew no French. So 4 remained, and much can be said in 4 words. Paul seemed quite unhappy, disappointed, and at sea, so to speak. But suddenly the Italian asked me, in that tone of discontent which seemed habitual to her, "Do you know what time we shall get to Genoa?" "At 11 o'clock," I replied. Then after a moment I went on, "My friend and I are also going to Genoa, and if we can be of any service to you, we shall be very happy, as you are quite alone." But she interrupted with such a "Mica" that I did not venture another word. "What did she say?" asked Paul. "She said she thought you were charming." But he was in no humor for joking, and begged me dryly not to make fun of him. So I translated her question and my polite offer, which had been so rudely rejected. Then he became as restless as a caged squirrel. "If we only knew," he said, "what hotel she was going to, we could go to the same, try to find out, and so as to have another opportunity to make her talk." It was not particularly easy, and I did not know what pretext to invent, desirous as I was to make the acquaintance of this unapproachable person. We passed Nice, Monaco, Mentone, and the train stopped at the frontier for the examination of luggage. Although I hate those ill-bred people who breakfast and dine in railway carriages, I went and bought a quantity of good things to make one last attack on her by their means. I felt sure that this girl must, ordinarily, be by no means inaccessible. Something had put her out and made her irritable, but very little would suffice, a mere word or some agreeable offer, to decide her and vanquish her. We started again, and we 3 were still alone. I spread my edibles on the seat. I cut up the fowl, put the slices of ham neatly on a piece of paper, and then carefully laid out our dessert, strawberries, plums, cherries, and cakes, close to the girl. When she saw that we were about to eat, she took a piece of chocolate and 2 little crisp cakes out of her pocket and began to munch on them. "Ask her to have some of ours," Paul said in a whisper. "That is exactly what I wish to do. It is rather a difficult matter." As she, however, glanced from time to time at our provisions, I felt sure that she would still be hungry when she finished what she had with her. So, as soon as her frugal meal was over, I said to her, "It would be very kind of you if you would take some of this fruit." Again she said, "Mica," but less crossly than before. "Well then," I said, "may I offer you a little wine? I see you have not drunk anything. It is Italian wine, and as we are now in your own country, we should be very pleased to see such a pretty Italian mouth accept the offer of its French neighbors." She shook her head slightly, evidently wishing to refuse, but very desirous of accepting, and her Mica this time was almost polite. I took the flask, which was covered with straw in the Italian fashion, and filled the glass. I offered it to her. "Please drink it," I said, "to bid us welcome to your country." She took the glass with her usual look and emptied it in a draught, like a woman consumed with thirst, and then gave it back to me without even saying "Thank you." I then offered her the cherries. "Please take some," I said. "I should be glad if you will." Out of her corner she looked at all the fruit spread beside her, and said so rapidly that I could scarcely follow her, "I do not care for cherries or plums, only for strawberries." I put a newspaper full of wild strawberries on her lap, and she ate them quickly, tossing them into her mouth from some distance in a coquettish and charming manner. When she had finished the little red heap, which soon disappeared under the rapid action of her hands, I